We will be working on this beautiful Lingenfelter Corvette limited supply. Let's start that beautiful footage. What's up, YouTube? So this is a C4. As you can see right there, it says Lingenfelter Performance Engineering. This was a limited run production C4 that was converted into a supercharged beast back in the 90s when this car was new. This thing has it's a Vortex supercharger with some custom intercooler piping. It's got a old school but then upgraded ignition called a Deltec system. It uses individual coil plugs instead of using a single and running through an opti. This still runs through the opti for a crank trigger, but you know, it was an upgrade back in the day. All the LT1 guys pretty much know that. It's got the ZR1 wheels on it, so there are 315s in the rear, and I believe 275s in the front. Under the hood here, you can see the supercharger. It's a very compact fit. Now, I'm not normally a fan of these style superchargers. They do function very well. However, they can just be a pain to work on. You know, you have to drain the oil in these things like every 5,000 miles. So there's not really an easy way to do that without making a complete mess. And if you've ever changed the supercharger oil, it smells like so bad. It smells like stinky butt, I'm telling you. It's horrible. So right now, the situation with this car, it's got a blown engine. So I'm not sure if Lingenfelter beefed up the engines in these or they just tried to keep the boost low. This car right here has been dynoed at 535 horsepower. So for an LT1, this thing is stout. You know, back in the day, this thing would put a hurting on a ZR1. So the ZR1s were like 375. I think the later ones got up into the 400s, but they would pretty much rev out to like 7,500 RPM easy because they were dual overhead cam. Still a 350, but that's besides the point. Right now we're working on this supercharged LT1, so I'm going to dust this baby off, and I'm going to start taking some things out the top and prep this thing for an engine removal. So this engine's going to go to the machine shop. It's going to get rebuilt. If the pistons and rods look good and they're forged, you know, where we use them. If they're not forged, we're going to go with a full forged set, and that way we can crank the boost up. Now, I don't know if he's going to go for it now, but if we do go that route and crank the boost up, a simple electronic system for this car that's fairly inexpensive is to go with a 24X setup. You know, it's still pricey for the whole conversion, but it basically replaces the opti spark that's buried right down in the front of that engine, and it replaces it with a crank trigger, a 24X crank trigger, so you can run an LS style crank pickup. Once you do that, you convert all the other stuff over, the sensors, and you can run a LS1 wiring harness and sensor setup on this car. Again, this is that Deltec setup. It runs 4 coils. You know, just in case you were wondering what that looks like. But yeah, it would be nice to even eliminate that because that's old school. The problem with this is these PCMs are just such a pain to tune. I mean, you can tune them, but you know, it's like if you were to consider what the upgrade in computing technology from the 90s to, you know, the mid 2000s, it's comparative to being in a dark room, right? Your eyes are the computer. It sees the sensors, right? Well, this sort of setup is like having a strobe light on as the only light source in that room. So you don't pick up a lot of sensors, as well as the mapping. The maps in the programming, you only have a set amount of parameters that the computer can adjust with. Well, if you forward to the 2000s computers, that map just grows exponentially larger, and it's more along the lines of someone having a you know, high definition light on solid all the time. So, you know, the computing power is insane. It's a lot faster. It's a lot more easy to tune as well. You know, the software to tune this thing, you know, you used to have to use this program called Data Master. Now I think the only one that's remaining is Tuner Pro. But, you know, you can get these things dialed in, you know, fairly well. So, you know, don't get me wrong, you know, it's still a good computer. It's not like in the 80s with the C4s. I mean, that was just like having a strobe light that just flashed every 2 seconds, you know. It was horrible. But anyway, enough with the talking. I guess I'm gonna start prepping this thing to pull the motor, so I'll send you guys an update once that's taken care of. All right, thanks.